Sorry. But we can. I didn't mean to stop the discussion. Just
No,
continue.
no, no, no. I can. You know me. I can start up the conversation
Derek
quickly.
so you believe that the Mike, while we were gone, while you guys weren't watching, brought up some kind of crazy political conspiracy theory about the Oscars. So,
Well, no, the Golden Globes were last night, and I was struck by the fact that in spite of extremely really glowing reviews for American Sniper, which is not out in the U.S. yet, except for L.A. and New York and in Canada and Toronto, because they released those movies early in those areas to qualify for the Academy Awards, that it didn't get any nominations. Bradley Cooper didn't get nominated for Best Actor. Clint Eastwood didn't get nominated for Best Director. It didn't get nominated for Best Picture. And I have the feeling it's because, it's a pro-military movie, and Hollywood, they love those movies like Jarhead that make the invasion of Iraq look like Vietnam.
Zero Dark 30, I thought did.
Zero Dark 30, they purposely. I mean, how can you not glorify the killing of Bin Laden? I mean, even Hollywood couldn't screw that one up.
Yeah.
And I have yet to see American Sniper, so I'll give my review next week. But
I saw it and it was awesome. I loved it. One of my favorite movies this winter.
Yeah, so I mean, with that glowing review, now I have to see it. But yeah, and Josh and I were talking about the Golden Globes last night, and Josh's highlight was the appearance of Jennifer Lopez.
Yes.
And her globes.
Yes.
And my highlight was Kate Hudson.
Well, yeah. Any good standing young American boy who watched Kate Hudson's one movie which is
Almost Famous.
Yeah, Almost Famous. Immediately fell in love with Kate Hudson forever and ever and ever, and there's no question that she's the bomb. Yes. Good friends with Eric Lindros.
Really?
Really good friends. Yes.
Yes, Kate. I mean, God, what the heck was her name in that movie? I'm trying to think.
Penny Lane, come on.
Penny Lane. Yeah, I know. I'm shocked that I couldn't remember that. But no, to me, my favorite thing last night was Michael Keaton winning Best Actor for the movie Birdman, which I haven't seen yet. I want to see, but he's been my favorite ever since the Ron Howard movie Night Shift back in the early '80s, and Batman, and obviously in a lot of other movies. There was a movie.
Buddies.
Yeah, Beetlejuice.
Mr. Mom.
Yeah, Mr. Mom. And it was a serious movie called Clean and Sober that he did about recovery drug addicts. He was fantastic in, and I was really upset that he never got nominated. And it seems like it might be his time, at least to get a nomination and maybe win, because you know how Hollywood is whenever you have an actor it's almost like a career achievement award, like Sean Connery winning for The Untouchables. He won after a 40-year career in a movie that probably. Either he shouldn't have been nominated for, or it was a career award, and maybe Michael Keaton wins that for.
What was his last movie? Jack Frost?
No, I mean he's been in some movies as supporting characters. That's the thing. He just hasn't been a lead actor because just like there's ageism in Hollywood with women, there's ageism in Hollywood with men. Only guys like Stallone, Schwarzenegger, Michael Douglas, Bruce Willis, those guys, they get to be star actors in movies into their 50s and 60s, not as Sean Connery, not as many, it drifts off after a while.
I agree. I'm not totally wrong with that, but I do like conspiracy theories. I love conspiracy theories, so I'll go with that any day of the week.
You saw Birdman, Kevin, didn't you?
No, I haven't, but I do want to see it, and I've certainly had great respect for Michael Keaton. So, and I agree exactly with what Mike has been saying about, sometimes those awards do have an air of lifetime achievement in them. I don't think it's sort of like one of those situations where I don't think they would take someone who's in a bad movie or does a bad performance and give them an award, but they look to reward people late in their career. So, I think everybody sort of knows that, and if a guy gets a decent role and does a good job in it, that's when they, like Sean Connery. Certainly he was good in Untouchables, but I'll bet he would say that's not his best work.
Right. I mean, there are exceptions to the rule. Like, I mean, a few years ago, Mickey Rourke was in a movie called The Wrestler, which he was phenomenal in.
It was good.
And I mean, he's young enough that he could be nominated again, but it's maybe not likely. And he didn't get passed over, but and I don't remember who won ahead of him, but he didn't win. So Peter O'Toole, the last 2 or 3 times he was nominated for Best Actor, should have won in that sort of lifetime achievement category, but never did. I mean, to me, one of the best actors of all time, and he was nominated for an Academy Award 8 times and never won. Yeah, so I mean, we won't find that out till I think it's March or early April for the Oscars. But
yeah, no, I was happy to see the Transparent one some more. You guys still haven't seen it, right?
No, haven't yet. Know what it's about now, though. So
yeah.
Which one, Nick? I'm sorry.
Transparent.
Yeah.
My newest one is Mozart in the Jungle. I'm watching that one too. That's also on Amazon Prime, and that's also phenomenal. That's the next one you got to watch. That's like. That's amazing. All right,
Hey, before we start the podcast,
yes.
Peyton Manning's already making excuses. Says he's torn his right quad and was playing with that the last month.
Well, this isn't football buzz, but I definitely have a problem with the refereeing call yesterday in the Dallas Green Bay game. I thought that call was ridiculous, but supposedly that's the rule. The interpretation of how what you have to do to maintain control. All I know is the guy caught the ball. He went toward the end zone, and then the ball shifted position when he hits the ground. I mean, it's just if the guy catches the ball, the guy catches the ball. I'm just so that one of the reasons of why the NFL has lowered in my estimation in the last few years is because you look at something and you think it's a catch, and then 5 minutes later after a review you find out it's not a catch.
You should just be happy Rex Ryan's now in Buffalo.
Here's the problem, and Eck and I just had long discussions about this on the Cranky Hockey Writers show, but everybody who believes that instant replay would solve all of the issues in the NHL just needs to watch that game yesterday. I've actually now talked to a dozen people who watched that game, and it's now split 6-6 on whether or not that was a catch or not a catch. And all of them are guys who understand the rules and everything else. And Mike's the same way. Mike, you're a very knowledgeable sports guy. You understand the rules, but you came away thinking that was simply a catch just based on, you looked at it and said it looked like a catch. But, I know 6 other people who know just as much about it as you do who believe that was clearly not a catch.
Right.
And I don't have an emotional investment in it because I'm neither a Packers fan or a Cowboys fan. I mean, I sort of wanted the Cowboys to win but I didn't have money on it, and I didn't and I don't have a rooting interest. So I just
What always amuses me about instant replay is I've been in a room with half a dozen people watching an NFL game, and the out of bounds play. We'll all watch that same video. Yeah. And yet we cannot agree on what we just saw. Even though when they slow it down and everything else, there'll be, it just, it's in the eye of the beholder, even on instant replay.
Well, the funny thing, this is
a certain level of of your own bias you can't get by, and that just that plays into this. And I mean, we know more about what makes a catch than I do about world politics. There's so many elements.
Yeah.
Well, this is
you have to respect Mike's perspective on this, and I actually appreciate your perspective on this. It's just based on when you look at it, it feels like a catch,
Right.
But what the biggest issue is, and I was thinking about this morning. One of my philosophies of life is that always entertain the possibility that you could be wrong, and then treat everyone fairly. The problem is, I don't think the rest of the world feels the same way. Most people, they get their opinion, and you just can't change. They're just not going to change their mind. They look at it, they see it one way, and that's just it.
And the funny thing is it looking at that, it sort of feeds into conspiracy theories, because if you remember last week, Dallas and Detroit, Detroit got screwed by Dallas or Detroit got screwed because of the officials against Dallas, and it was almost as if and this was a very common, opinion on Twitter and in the media, was that it was almost like Dallas got their comeuppance for what had happened to them the previous week against Detroit, even to the point that the Detroit Lions Twitter feed sent out, now you know how it feels, Cowboys. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's like it almost feeds into the conspiracy theory. Okay, well, they benefited last week, so let's screw them this week on a call that clearly looks like they should have had the catch. I mean, it's just bad. It's just bad.
I say this all, like, how many people really believe that, given the number of people that would have to be involved in a conspiracy, that actually could be pulled off?
True.
It's specious. The whole thing is specious, but it appears that way. It's like this. I always think of the Simpsons episodes. My favorite Simpsons episode where a bear wanders into town, and the people freak out and they're like, "Oh my gosh, there's a bear in town. This is awful." And they pass a bear tax, and the bear and there's a bear patrol, and then they install these satellites all over the place and everything like that. And then the mayor comes out a year later and says, "We've now had 1 year without a bear ever wandering into town." And Lisa says it's a specious argument. There was never a bear before that bear came to town, and there's not a bear since then. We have no way of knowing. Yeah, it's just you can't put these things together and just be assume that they're all together. I mean, even though that's a lot of fun to do, and like I said, I'm a huge fan of conspiracy theories, and I mean I listen to the coast to coast radio every night almost, which is like, and that's great stuff. I mean, and that guy's, it used to be Art Bell,
yeah.
And the new guys get too, but Art Bell was phenomenal. Listen to people. I want people who are werewolves to call in the next hour, that kind of thing. I mean, I love listening to that stuff.
Can you say that right now? Because I would like the people who are werewolves.
Yes, if you're a werewolf, you can text me right now. I will put you on the air. Yes, but I think that's just something,
Yeah. Well, the problem with it is when I was a kid, we had the same amount of debate on that, but now because of social media, it's just become ugly. You know what I mean? Like, we laugh about it, but it's just so messy out there, and I'm just so fearful that somebody's going to take this to the extreme. Because you now have an avenue in which to vent your frustration and find like-minded people who will support that. It used to be, when you were kids, it was just a debate at school, and everybody would say, "You're wrong. No, you're wrong," and then you'd push it aside. Now it's well beyond that, as we all know.
Well, that's it, right? Because it's two angry people on social media aren't just two angry people. It's like anger on social media has like an exponential factor to it. It becomes like, it's not just because they all have followers, but the actual this stuff has always been going on. Social media just allows you to see how mad everybody else is. So now you feel like you're not alone, and there's other people who see it my way, because you'll always find people out there who see it exactly your way, which never was the case in the past. You could, your friends, if your two or three friends didn't agree with you, you'd be like, maybe I'm wrong. But now you can find people out there who just completely agree with you.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. The unwillingness to back off of your argument is a product of being able to find like-minded people on social media, it's hard because when my kids were young, I always tried to pass along my philosophy. Is always entertain the possibility you might be wrong on an issue, and the problem is that that's not the way society is now on. Especially with Twitter,
No, not at all. Not at all.
Let's find some other people that agree the way I do. So then, if we got enough of these, then we must be right. So.
But you can do, and you can form a chat room with them, and now you can get madder and madder and madder and madder and madder because all of you.
Well, that's happened to journalism too. Like in the '70s when I got involved post Watergate, the journalism was about the watchdog function. It was everybody wanted to be the next one to reveal some level of corruption in whatever you were covering, and that sort of and everybody wanted to go to newspapers or magazines. There was no websites, obviously, that sort of gave you a watchdog, advocate style of journalist who was looking to make sure that everything was on the up and up. Now I think readers want to go to whatever place echoes their perspective. They don't want both sides. They want to go where the people are saying exactly the way they feel.
Right.
Exactly, that's exactly right, Kevin. Because back in the late '90s, the Drudge Report who broke the stuff about Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky and all that stuff. That became for one side of the political spectrum became the place to go for news, and now you've got all these different political websites that sort of cater to their own niche. So it sort of gave birth to that kind of that kind of activism online. So it really had, especially with the growth of the internet, it is grown exponentially.
Oh yeah, no question.
Well,
all right, let's get on here.
Yeah, instant replay is a tough situation.
Ooh, it really is. We did a really good Cranky Hockey Writers show today on refereeing and everything about that, so I definitely recommend it. It's one of my favorite shows. It's so much fun. I thought today's topic, I was really lost for a topic until about 30 seconds before, and it worked out. Definitely something we got into. We got in some really good discussions on that, so check it out. All right, let's start the show. Mike, Kevin, Josh. Okay. It's Monday, January 12th.
You trying to convince me?
I know it is.
You know it is. It's his birthday. Happy birthday, Ak.
Happy birthday, Ak.
That's right. Thank you very much. Me and Claude Giroux. Okay. Hey, Hockey World. It's Monday, January 12th, 2015.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Kevin Allen of USA Today Sports.
I'm Josh Rimmer.
And I'm Eklund. You're watching the HockeyBuzzCast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast where we come to you Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. to try to keep you up to date on all the hockey news, or if you tune in really early, conspiracy theories, and why Hollywood is completely against Mike. But besides that, we're gonna get right into it today.
I wouldn't have a problem with certain people in Hollywood being against me in a certain sort of sense, but never mind.
Lord, let's not go there. So let's start here instead, because there is something awesome that happened here in hockey, and I don't think many people know about this, but I was really, this to me is a long time coming. I'm going to share the screenshot. It's not a bear playing hockey. Did you see that, Kevin, last week?
No.
You were off when we did that. We found in Russia they had an actual bear on skates playing hockey in between periods of a game, an actual bear.
That's the coolest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, we'll show it again today because it's worth showing again. I will show, but I'm first going to start here with this. Okay, this happened before the Ducks Winnipeg Jets game the other night in warm-ups. And yes, indeed, the Winnipeg Jets have brought back for their warm-up, just for their warm-up, they brought back their old retro jerseys, which to me was a long time coming and pretty awesome. And I hope that this is something that happens in the future because I love this jersey. This is one of the.
I'm sure they
the anniversary patch there on the shoulder.
Yep.
I'm sure they had to ask permission from the Arizona Coyotes because I believe they have the.
Right. They must own. Somebody there owns the logo, right? And that's why I was this is happening. Like yeah. But I don't dislike the Jets' new jerseys, but I don't love them either. And to me, they're not hockey jerseys. To me, this is a hockey jersey. This old Winnipeg Jets jersey. This is a hockey jersey. It brings up the island. It reminds you. It seems like the Islanders and the Oilers. It reminds you of that era of hockey where I've been waiting for this. And it's funny because the NHL sells this jersey and memorabilia with this stuff on it a lot. Like I've talked to people at the NHL. If you go to the NHL store in New York, you'll see Winnipeg Jets hats still that look like this and everything like that. But they have not had this for a while. So I am just hoping against hope. I'm guessing we're going to get this in the future.
It's possible, but I would have thought. See, I would have thought it would have been great for that jersey to come back with the team. And I know I'm sure there were legal ramifications for the reason that it didn't happen. Like you said, I don't have a problem with this emblem over here. But it's just, that was the jersey that Dale Hawerchuk wore. That was the jersey that pretty much Bobby Hull wore in the 70s.
Well, to be fair, right? This is why it's nerve-wracking because this is before the retirement of Teemu Selanne, right? So this is a jersey probably just to honor the fact that Teemu is getting retired, right? This is before the retirement ceremony. So maybe we won't see this actually worn in a game. But I just want to throw it out there as something that I believe should be.
Well, let's just say this: if you take a look at this emblem, this is the Toronto Maple Leaf emblem that most Maple Leaf fans want.
Mm-hmm.
This is the emblem that most Maple Leaf fans have, and that this is the reason they don't have this one anymore is because in the early '70s when they switched over, Harold Ballard wanted the exclusive copyright to the Leafs emblem and brought forth the new emblem. Couldn't get the revenue from the old one, so right now the only thing the Leafs use that one for is their third throwback jersey, and I think a lot of people think that the other one, the old one, is the one they won all their Stanley Cups with, is the one that should be worn all the time, but it's not.
Yeah, I agree. I'm with you on that one. And I don't know. I mean, this is just my thought on this. But let's move. We're gonna do some of the mid-season awards today a little bit. So we're gonna do our MVPs and our most valuable goalies, our Norris, and we're gonna do. I think we have 4 or 5, 4 of them, Mike, right?
5. We had 5.
Yeah. So we'll get into that in a second. Just getting into some quick news before we do that. I had the. I mean, obviously the Timu. Did you guys see the Timu ceremony?
I saw a little bit of it. Yeah.
What do you think?
Ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see it, but I know about what happened, and just as basically explained to me, and having talked to people who saw it, it sounded like they really did it, very Montreal Canadiens-like. In other words, it was a perfect ceremony, and probably the only negative is that Paul Kariya couldn't make it, but he did have a video that he paid tribute to his longtime friend. The classiest thing for me was Solani, wanting a seat left open for his longtime friend and agent Don Baisley, who passed away, not so long ago. And well-known, Baisley was well-known in the hockey community as a class guy, and Solani paid homage to him as, his North American father. He was more than an agent. He was the kind of guy who could, talk Solani through the, adjustment period of, coming over here and so forth. But everybody said that Solani was very eloquent in his address as well, and that Samuelis were eloquent as well. And I guess it was just done really, really well.
It really was. Mike, your thoughts?
Yeah, I saw a few minutes of it, and he seemed to be genuinely moved and humbled by the presentation. I mean, he's a fantastic player. Definitely a Hall of Famer when he becomes available, he becomes eligible, and a class act. I've heard many stories about how classy the guy Team Solani was. So well deserved and well done by Anaheim. And I know that. I think it's tonight or tomorrow when Detroit plays Buffalo, there's going to be a retirement ceremony for Dominic Hasek, which a few years ago I would have thought had happened because there was not great relations between the Sabres and Hasek, but there seems to be sort of a renaissance, especially under Terry Pegula, of honoring the greats of the Sabres. Past, like the French Connection, and now Dominic Hasek. So it's
That's very.
I wanted to say one more thing about Solani, because I think it's important. Solani was many different things. He was, a dominant performer. He was a charismatic speaker. He was a warrior. Certainly, I don't think he was the greatest European player of all time, but I think he's in the conversation, for that. But the one thing, and I wrote my tribute about him, and I think it was sort of lost on people, is like he was one of the rare athletes, in my opinion, that enjoyed the view on his climb to the top. And by that I mean, how often have we seen video of coaches and athletes who say, when asked about, how they feel about a milestone, well, it's something I'll think about after I retire. Their focus is so intense that they can't enjoy the journey. They're so, they're trying to get to the destination. And Solani was one of the few athletes who enjoyed every minute of the journey. Like, he had a good time in the dressing room. He had a good time in practice. When he walked into the rink, he signed a lot of autographs. When he left the rink, he signed a lot of autographs. I remember writing a story about him years ago of the odd couple, him and Solani, and Kariya telling me the story of that. Solani had tried to get him to loosen up, and Kariya had tried to get Solani to at least pretend to be more focused. Now, I believe personally that Solani was always focused, but he liked to turn on tennis matches in between periods of games, which Korea just couldn't understand. But to Solani, between the whistles, he was a warrior. I mean, this is the guy that spit out 3 teeth during an Olympic a game, a 4-3 win over the U.S. in the quarterfinals, and at the end, when people ask him about it, he goes, teeth don't matter. He said, you can get new teeth. I would gladly give up 3 teeth to win a gold medal, was his quote. So, he was a warrior, but that didn't mean he couldn't enjoy himself and couldn't smile. So I admired him because he wasn't out there curing cancer, or he believed that his job was the most important thing in the world. He went out and he knew he was playing a kid's game at a high level, and he enjoyed that. And he was thankful every minute he was in the league. So that's what I admire about him.
I love it. That's a great way of putting it. My favorite Solani moment was right after he won the Stanley Cup and actually being in the hallway for a second, waiting for a door to open, and it was just me and a couple other people, and Solani was standing there with the cup. And we were waiting for this door to open, and he was just you could tell. I mean, it was just like you said. He completely understood how incredible that moment was, and that was just something that it wasn't as if this is something that I just do. I won this thing, and a lot of us kind of felt like that was it. He's gonna say I've won this, we're done. I'm done. I'm gonna and yet he's
well, some people cry when they win the cup. Solani wept.
Yeah, he did.
I think there was an important description of that he wept for 15 or 20 minutes. The joy was so overwhelming. He'd gotten to the top of the mountain, and it was such a huge celebration for him. So, he ranks among my top 5 all-time favorite players. Always answered the bell when you needed something from him as a journalist. So, a terrific guy.
I also think it's really neat that the Anaheim Ducks have this kind of player. That this is something that they have, because it's still a young team to everybody. It's still a strange team to some people. That they were in Disneyland, a result of a Disney movie title. And yet it took them a while. I mean, they've been such a great team for such a long time now. They got rid of their whole Disney moniker and all that stuff. They got rid of the Mighty Park, but they still, don't get off in the respect I think that they deserve, and it's good to see. This is you're watching their tradition being built in front of you. That's what it felt like when I was watching the ceremony. You're watching the Ducks, the legend of what the Ducks are. There is actually a concrete. If you won a Stanley Cup, and here's a player, superstar player, who's associated with them.
And the funny thing is, Zach, is that he's extremely beloved, perhaps the most beloved player in the history of that franchise. I mean, that might be arguable, but. And he was there for 6 seasons and then left. And then he went to San Jose for 3 years. Him and Korea went to Colorado for a year. And then there was the lockout, or the missed season. And then he comes back to Anaheim and wins the Stanley Cup. And it's like he never left. It's like that 4-year chapter was just forgotten by that fan base.
And people also don't put into perspective the importance he had on the San Jose Sharks franchise, because that was really early. That was at that time I was dating my wife, who was living out in that area when he was in San Jose, and there were a lot of people who were becoming Sharks fans because Teemu Selanne was a Shark. It was not that was definitely, and he was only there for a short period of time, but he had a big impact on that franchise. So I was happy to see that.
I guess I shouldn't forget the contributions on the ice too. I mean, 76 goals.
Yeah.
Season, just a phenomenal accomplishment.
He could just fly. I mean, he literally could fly, and there was nothing like when he came in as a rookie. He made other players look like they were standing still. He was still in the era where there were still some defensemen who couldn't skate as well as we might think now. But man, oh man, some of his goals that whole first season were just incredible, and he continued on too, obviously. But that was something else. That was something to watch.
And how would the fortunes of the Calgary Flames have been changed? Kevin, you remember before he played a game in Winnipeg, I believe Calgary tried to sign him to an offer sheet, or it was some sort of free agent contract.
there was something. I don't remember how it all unfolded.
Yeah, and Winnipeg had to match. I think it was basically they signed him to an offer sheet, and the team that had his draft rights had the right to match, and Winnipeg did, and then he came over and he scored 76 goals as a rookie. But imagine what the effect that would have had on the Calgary Flames if Winnipeg hadn't, and he goes there and scores like that, and maybe he stays in Calgary his entire career and then never plays in Anaheim. So it's the what ifs.
It definitely is. And so moving on, though, the couple goalies down. Mike, what's going on?
Well, Steve Mason was injured on Saturday in the game against the Bruins. The indications are right now it's a 2-week injury. They said approximately 2 week. Now, I don't know if they've gotten any specific than the lower body description, but I heard it was a knee. It was very awkward looking. And I know that Rob Zepp is going to be starting in goal for the Flyers in their next game, which
It's nice.
Yeah, I mean it's a great story, but I mean I think the Flyers are more interested in maybe getting back into the playoff race, and if Mason is out for a couple weeks, and I don't know how realistic them climbing back into the race in the Eastern Conference is. But the one that I think is more concerning, and Kevin can maybe illuminate on this, is Jimmy Howard. I mean the indications are right now that it was a tear of his groin. And right now, with him out, and whenever there's a tear, that's something that sends that the bells and the lights and the whistles go off, especially for a goaltender. If he's out for a significant period, right now their goaltenders are Mrazek and McCollum, and that's not terrible. I mean, Mrazek has played some games this year and he's looked pretty good, but they don't have Gustafsson and they don't have Howard, and I think that team needs a experienced goaltender to, they maybe could make the playoffs, but I don't know if they could go far with basically Grand Rapids goaltending.
Yeah, I would agree with that assessment. I just did for our morning preview, 5 factors influencing the wild card races in the NHL, and number 1 was, how long Howard is going to be out. And when we came onto the podcast, that had not yet been determined. I don't know if it has yet, but I agree with that. I mean, Mrazek has been a top-notch prospect for a lengthy period of time. He's very experienced at the minor league level. He's won a championship. Probably as aggressive of a goalie as you're going to find in the NHL. He drives himself out of the paint. He reminds me a little bit of Quick in that regard, Jonathan Quick. He's a little bit smaller than you would like in a goalie, but he's got great quickness and reflexes. So, he's a very cocky kid, too, very cocky. And I say that as a positive, not a negative. He expects to be successful. But this is a Red Wing team that I think views itself as a as a dark horse, as a team that nobody's paying attention to. They're laying in the weeds a little bit, snake in the grass, but they need quality goaltending. So whether or not, if Howard is going to be out for a lengthy period, will Mrazek be the guy? I don't know whether they'd go out and get in the goaltending sweepstakes. They may try it with Mrazek, but it's going to be interesting to see. But I think this is a very key injury in the Eastern Conference, because Howard was playing extremely well. His goals against average around 2. His save percentage was up, above 920, and his 5-on-5 save percentage was even higher. Not so good on in shootouts, as we all know. Had a bit of the yips this season, but really had done a real strong job for him. And the Red Wings' defensive play, which had been very sharp early in the season, had started to slip. So the need for Howard is more acute even than earlier in the season. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
And I don't think either injury is going to, like as you said, I mean, maybe they go with Mrazek for a while and see what happens. I don't think Mason is injured seriously enough that Philadelphia is going to go out and trade for a goaltender. Ironically, the team that is probably most on the lookout for a goaltender is the one that just reported on his rumor update an hour or so ago, which was the Minnesota situation with either Enroth or Cam. I just can't see Cam Ward and Carolina with that cap hit them that Minnesota being interested. But Enroth being a rent-a-player UFA with Buffalo having both him and Neuwirth, and having the situation that Buffalo has with Matt Hackett, where they have to play him, I believe, 8 or 9 games to get him out of one category of a free agent, so they can actually retain his rights rather than him walking away as a UFA next year. Sort of makes it more. It gives Buffalo more impetus to actually trade one of these goaltenders, and I think it's probably going to happen, but it's a question of which one and how much they can get.
I mean, Minnesota does like Enroth, I was told, and that they're liking him more and more, I was told. So, that's for what there is definitely, and Ward is not a possibility at this point. But, Ward it's actually not even, it's a contract, but it's more the injuries and the fact that if you're a Minnesota Wild right now, you're thinking to yourself, the last thing you need to do is bring in another injury-prone goalie. That's like, the contract is a problem, but you've had your share of injury-prone goalies.
Yeah, I mean the contract's a problem because it goes beyond this season too.
Right.
You can make it work. That's why I wouldn't see the Red Wings even considering that as well. The one thing about the Red Wings too, you have Gustafsson, who has been able to skate because he had a shoulder injury, but is still not real close to being back. So he's a good option for Detroit. They thought he had played particularly well late in the last season, so they would be pretty comfortable if they had Gustafsson and Mrazek as their goalies.
Yeah, no, that's it's me. So let's get into some of these awards. Let's start with the goalie award, by the way, for now for our midseason thoughts here. Why don't we go with you, Mike, first? I have my opinions on this, but who do you have as your Vezina? And Josh, tell us who you think would your.
To me, the Vezina is the clearest, widest gap. I think it's Pekka Rinne. 28 wins, goals against under 2. Nashville's leading the Central Division. I think a distant second at this point is Carey Price, who's having a really good year with Montreal. But to me, Pekka Rinne is the midseason Vezina winner.
It's a tough one. I mean, I think it's actually harder than that. But I mean, I would also go with Rinne, but I think Price, and there's been some other goalies too, to have had pretty good seasons. But I think I'm kind of with you on. I'm with you on. I don't know. It would be a tough one if I was to decide between Rinne and Price right now. It would be because Price has been very, very, very good too. But Rinne, we'll talk about him in a little bit too. Josh, what are your thoughts?
Sorry, one guy I've been really impressed with, guys, and it's a big reason why Winnipeg has been playing so well, is Michael Hutchinson. I mean, I know he's only a rookie, but .931 save percentage, 11 wins. I mean, the kid's been dynamite. 2.0 goals against average. A big reason why Winnipeg's playing as well as they have been.
Oh yeah, he's been the guy. What are your thoughts, Kevin?
Yeah, I'm a Rinne guy all the way through. The top team in the league. He's been a difference maker. The stats are there. That he passes the eye test as well. He's had the best season. Like Carey Price has been really good, and there, as you mentioned, there are some other really good goalies. But to me, I don't even think this would be close. I think this is Pekka Rinne on a runaway.
But that brings up my next point, which is MVP of the year, MVP of the league, which we're going to jump onto now instead of waiting to the end, which would be dramatically more proper. But I'm going to go on it right now because I do think that Rinne is the MVP of the NHL, and this is where I have issues. If I was, I wouldn't mind giving Price the Vezina and Rinne the MVP, because I think that Rinne is the MVP in the NHL this year, bar none. I've talked about why before, but I really just. And watching that team live gives you more perspective on why. I don't know how many people get to see the Predators play live all that often, but I've seen him twice this year, and I just really, you see on the ice that he is not just the goalie, he is their leader. He is their spiritual leader out there. He does lead this team, and he plays with he's also very aggressive, and very much he's not your normal goalie. I remember talking to Jerry Helper, who does the Wild media and stuff like that, and telling me that you don't have to worry about him in terms of Rinne, in terms of other goalies, where other goalies you couldn't talk to him on game day, you couldn't talk to him in this situation if you had a shutout streak going, you couldn't talk to him. Rinne will talk to you no matter what. He doesn't care. He'll just talk to you. He just doesn't care. He doesn't have that kind. I like that. I like that. I mean, I love the whole goalie superstition thing, and I was really weird when I played too, and I never would, I would do certain things the same way every day. But I like the fact that Rinne is no BS, just fine. He's just a player. He's playing a sport. I don't know. I like that. So MVP for Rene, Kevin?
Well, for sure. I mean, anybody read my column this week about him knows I feel that way. I've always been troubled a little bit by, my group, my writers who don't seem to, take a hard look at goalies for MVP. The definition of the award is most valuable to his team. Rene has every win in the Predators this year. Not most of them or nearly all of them. He has all of them.
Right.
And they have gone from a non-playoff team to a playoff team. And the biggest difference by far in their performance level this season is, his performance in net and the confidence they have because he is in net. And I know there haven't been that many, goalies that have won it. But I attribute that primarily to, as I said, and you kind of just did it just now when you said, you would like to see, maybe Carey Price get the Vezina and Rene get the MVP. I don't like that thinking because that's the kind of thinking that leads people not to vote for a goalie for MVP, saying they have their own award. And it's very similar to Major League Baseball when they don't like to give a pitcher, the MVP. Now, in that case, the argument is they only go every fifth day. But they did it to Verlander recently because he had such a great season. But I think this is the year, and I also think that he's helped this year because there's really no clear, decisive MVP candidate among forwards and defensemen. And I think that plays also into, in my mind, Rene having a lead here. Still a half of the season to play, but he has a lead going into the second half of the season. Yeah,
he could be caught, Mike.
I had him in my top three because I listed the three finalists like they would be at the end of the year. But I succumbed to that goaltending prejudice. I said it in one of the previous webcasts about Jose Theodore and how I think that maybe would color things in terms of them making an MVP for a goaltender. Plus, I don't know if they would want to have multiple, even though he's having a dominant season, whether they would want him to win the Vezina and the Hart Trophy. But that being said, I was looking for somebody outside of Rene, and the guy I came up with was Rick Nash with 26 goals for the Rangers. I believe he's leading the league in goals right now. Now, I mean, granted, by the end of the season, if the Rangers don't make the playoffs or if he tails off, then I don't think he'll be nominated in the top three. I had Malkin as the other nominee for the Hart, but right now I would pick Nash simply because Rene was my Vezina Trophy winner.
Rick Nash, I can never see him getting that.
I'm gonna petition the league to rewrite the rules and says that the guy's gonna win that. And the other thing too is if he's not really a good player, that it's really supposed to be a lifetime achievement award for, the Jose Theodore. But it's supposed to be for that season.
Right. True.
Whether he was a good goalie before or after should have no bearing on the award.
Right, and that's the truth. And that's Rick Nash too, because last year he was horrible, and this year he's an MVP possibility. So that's pretty crazy. But
it does have an effect on the voting, Kevin, because if you look at baseball, back in the 80s, Willie Hernandez, the relief pitcher for the Detroit Tigers, I believe won the Cy Young and the MVP the year the Tigers won the World Series, and I'm pretty sure he's the last relief pitcher that won a Cy Young.
Yeah, well, I believe I said that in my opening remarks that I don't like how my white writers group kind of views that, because I do agree with you. It has an impact, but it shouldn't. That's the problem. The rules don't. There's nothing in there that says that a goalie can't win MVP. But I think people think the way you do. And to me that makes no sense because a goalie is a pretty important part. Harry Sinden. Years ago when I first started covering the league, I remember having a conversation with him, and he told me one of the things he hates most to hear a coach say was when a coach would say, you can't blame the goalie tonight because he had to face 3 or 4 breakaways. And Harry would say, well, last time I checked, a goalie is part of your team, number one. And secondly, I don't pay the goalie at that point $2 million to make the easy saves. I pay him $2 million because he's supposed to stop those breakaways. When when we give up the odd man chances, and and I give that example just to point out that sometimes we tend to look at goalies uniquely, even though they're a crucial part of our game.
Oh yeah, I agree. Who's your pick, Josh, for MVP?
You know what? I'm going to go off the board here. Well, not really off the board, but I'm going to say Jake Voracek. And the reason I'm saying Voracek is the way he's played this year is unbelievable. I mean, not only does he have 50 points leading the NHL in scoring, he's also a plus 11. And the Flyers, there's not a lot of guys on the Flyers that have a number like that in the plus category. I'm really impressed with Voracek's game this year. He worked really hard in the offseason, and he's a totally different player. He's more effective out there. And I mean, if Claude Giroux, I think Claude Giroux's missed a game or two, and Voracek's stolen the show. I mean, the guy's really impressed me this year. I'm gonna have to go with Jake Voracek.
I'm shocked that Josh didn't take Ryan Johansson.
Well, I mean, Johansson's not doing as well as Jake Voracek is. Let me just put it that way.
The thing people don't realize about Voracek, and I mean, obviously with the team being so terrible, it's hard to say he's been valuable, but he's had an amazing year. But the thing that people don't realize is last year he was better. He was the best player on the Flyers too. Like this is not brand new. And that includes Claude Giroux, who had an incredible year last year. Remember, after the first month of the season, was the number one. Claude Giroux was the number one scorer in the NHL, and actually, is the number one scorer. Someone said this the other day. The number one scorer in the NHL over the last 5 years is Claude Giroux. I didn't realize.
Oh.
But Voracek was the best Flyer last year. And the thing about Voracek is incredibly consistent, and just on a night in night out basis, he does not. There's not a game or shift you can say that he didn't show up for, and that's why one of the reasons he can do what he did. And a lot of that he credits to Jágr when Jágr was here in Philly, because Jágr was a guy he idolized, and Jágr taught him to play every shift like it was his last. And he does, actually, since Jágr's been here, Voracek's been that good.
I mean, did anyone even see this coming with this kid? Because I mean, I thought Voracek was going to be a 60, maybe 65 point forward, and now, I mean, he's on the verge of 100 points. I mean, he's
hard to say I would have ever said he was going to win the scoring title, but yeah, this is incredible. Kev, your thoughts?
Well, I'm just going to say the Voracek argument is, to me, at the heart of the definition of the award.
Yeah.
And that is, he's had a spectacular season, and he's had a great season. And, if the award was for being the best player, I think, he's in a much better position to win that award. Right. But the award is for most valuable to his team. So it's hard to make an argument that he's been more valuable to his team than, say, Pekka Rinne has been when the Predators are the best team in the league, and the Flyers are not even in a playoff spot. So how important could Voracek be if they're not even yet, in a playoff picture? I think it's the definition of the award that puts him in a little tougher spot. But I don't disagree with Josh. I mean, Voracek has been so impressive this season, and to sustain it for 2 years in a row. Yeah. He's just been a great player. Like,
you ever think he would be able to do something like that, Kevin?
No, I actually didn't. I remember thinking when that trade happened, well, that's a nice piece.
Yeah.
Where that'll help him. You get some scoring back, but I didn't see him evolving into the leading scorer on the Philadelphia.
And he actually, one thing I'll say about him is he actually does share that Solani-like attribute that he does enjoy all of this. He's loving this, and he's realizing it. He's realizing that this is a special time for him. That's kind of fun to be around.
Yeah,
he definitely has that going on. All right, how about the Norris Trophy? So we got the best defenseman in the league so far. Let's start with you on this one, Kev. What are your thoughts?
Well, I have been a Giordano guy all season long.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's had a remarkable season, but I'm shifting, and I guess I would say that I have shifted now to Shea Weber.
Okay.
It's a close call. Giordano's been so good this season, but I think his play has kind of leveled off a little bit, where Weber has been consistently good the entire season. And again, the Predators are such a great team. He's the best defenseman on the best team in the league. And he is. I don't know that you can find, because of his physical presence, a defenseman. Maybe Doughty, but Weber's shot is so good that he exceeds Doughty. The best all-around defenseman in terms of, like, he's got all of the attributes, and he's playing at a high level this season. So, he's a physical player. He's got a booming shot. He's an offensive catalyst. He's tougher than nails to beat one-on-one. Everything about him. So right now I would say I've got Weber 1 and Giordano 2.
That's a good call. Mike?
That's exactly what I had. I had Giordano, for most of the year, and then, when I was looking this up over the weekend, I looked at Weber, 10 goals, he's a plus 15, and he's been in the mix for the Norris over the last few years, and with Chara starting to get older, and I just think it is Weber's time, and if he continues on this pace and has the offensive totals that he has, and that's always been, he's had decent offensive totals, but now with Nashville being a more offensive club and him maintaining the plus minus that he has, I think it puts him over the top. But right now, I think he wins and Giordano finishes second, and then it could be a number of players like Hedman or Duncan Keith or whoever. Maybe Doughty is in the top 3, but I think right now I think Weber would win it.
Yeah, I'm a huge Shea Weber fan. I would love to see him win it because I think he's deserved. He's one of those guys who has maybe deserved to win this award before and hasn't, or in certain situations. But I'm actually Shattenkirk on this one. That's actually my guy. And just because of just having talked to people out in St. Louis and what he means to that team, when you think of the defense that the team has, and what they've gone out and traded for, they've got these incredible pairings, and yet Shattenkirk is actually why I think he's in the top 5 as far as scoring on defense, and if not number 1, and top in plus minus 2, I think. He's a plus 18. Yeah, so he's number 1. Sorry, he's number 1 in scoring for defense, and he's a plus 18, which I think is number 1 in defense as well. So. And he's got 30 assists, and to see a defenseman with 30 assists at this point in the year is pretty impressive. That's like that's a ton. Talking about a guy who can play both ends and also make solid outlet passes is a big part of the transition game. So I think Shattenkirk's my guy so far. But Josh?
Well, if we were doing most improved defenseman, I'd go with Eric Johnson after the year he's had. Obviously, he's not in the top 5 right now. He's in the top 25. Well, he's number 26. I'd have to go with Mark Giordano, though, as my Norris Trophy winner.
Yeah, no, it's hard. You're not going to go wrong. And I think this is still a race. I think we still have a little season to go on this one.
But 12 goals for Eric Johnson is unbelievable at the halfway point.
Oh yeah, no, considering where he's been. Kevin.
Here's a weird fact to add to this. While we got this discussion going on, because Eric Johnson has had a terrific season, and so has Kevin Shattenkirk. But I'm in the process of making my projections for the 2016 U.S. World Cup team, which is going to be announced pretty shortly that this is all going to happen. So I'm, basically surveying people who certainly know the U.S. program, and right now, neither Kevin Shattenkirk nor Eric Johnson, even though they're both in the midst thing, are locks to make that team. That's how good the U.S. defense is. Because let's not forget they have Ryan Suter, they got McDonough, they've got Cam Fowler, they have Seth Jones, they've got Carlson, they've got Trouba. That defense in 2016 is going to really be a strong unit.
Justin Falk, right?
Justin Falk. Brooks Orpik is having a nice season this year. So. I was trying to get a consensus for the locks, and neither Shattenkirk or Johnson, and everybody acknowledges how well Johnson has played this season.
Yeah.
I personally think Johnson will be on the team because we're playing on a smaller rink, and
you think it's a fluke with Johnson at all, Kevin?
No, not at all. I think Johnson is a very talented. That's why he went to number 1. Mm-hmm. But what his biggest enemy has been himself. He hasn't always been in the best shape, and I think he's in great shape now. And I think he has a lot of confidence. He's a really good guy. And I think this is that he's turned the corner here, and he realizes he's got a special opportunity here in Colorado. He's playing with a lot of talented players. And they expected more offense from him when he was drafted. It's just now coming. He's a late bloomer.
Yeah. Let's go to Jack Adams. This one is this is always tough, This is one of the most improved coach. Sometimes you can just a coach who manages with a lot of penalties, or a lot of injuries. But for me, it's Gary Galley, hands down. I mean, it's Florida. I mean, it's
Gerard Gallant.
I'm sorry, Gary Galley. My Lord.
Wait a second. How
Where
can
the
a
hell's my head?
college
Gerard
commentator
Gallant.
from Hockey Night in Canada win best coach?
All right, so I'm 47 today, and I'm losing my mind. There you go. Gerard Gallant, Gary Galley.
Yes, I think Coach of the Year should be Glenn Healy. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I thought for a second I missed something important.
All right, Gerard Gallant. What he has done in Florida to me is outstanding, and because it's a group that is, I don't even think Dale Talent thought they were going to be this competitive. It's hard to say. Maybe he did, but it seems like they're usually put together as a team that has a lot of one-year signings that can make good trade deadline deals. But now they're actually going to be buyers at the deadline. I mean, this to me, what Gallant/Galley has done is pretty impressive. So, Mike, go ahead.
I think GM of the Year should be Dale McCourt. Oh, I mean, Talent. I had Gallant as one of my final three, along with Peter Laviolette and Jack Capuano.
Oh, you were going to say Voracek now after that win.
No. I'm not a member of the sycophant Leaf Nation who thinks that Horachek should be Coach of the Year because he won one game. I think right now I would pick Capuano over Gallant because I've been really impressed with what the Islanders have done. They did make some additions, Halak and the two defensemen, Letty and Boychuk, but he's gotten a lot of consistency out of their forwards, not just Tavares, but Opozo and Strome and a number of their young kids, and he's done a really effective job. If Florida makes the playoffs, then I think Gallant will probably win it. But right now, I would give it to Capuano because the Islanders are leading the Metro Division right now.
See, but Capuano, I mean, and I think he's a great guy, and I feel bad saying this because he's, friends of ours are really good friends with the Capuanos too, and we talk about them all the time. But I think that this guy has been there, and it's amazing that he's still in there after the last several years.
I think he's one of 4 coaches that still have their job in the last 7 years.
And he's gotten great performance, but it's taken a long time to get this Islanders team to where it could be competitive. I don't know. It's a tough one, Kevin.
Yeah, I struggled trying to make up my mind here in this one, and I'm actually I'm in lockstep pretty much with Mike on this. With the only exception is I would add Cooper in the mix as well. I think he's done a phenomenal job. Yeah. And I think Capuano has also done a terrific job. I know what you're saying, but he hasn't had much to work with there.
Yeah.
And they've been dealing with a lower budget, and he did not have, in my opinion, a roster that was good enough to compete. And I thought oftentimes he got more out of that roster than it deserves, and he's finally got a decent roster now, and he's doing a lot with them. He relates well to the players. Players want to perform for him. Now, saying all that, I'm not going with him. I'm going with your guy, Gallant. I think, he has transformed a team that looked like it had nothing into a defensive giant. They're one of the best defensive teams in the league now, and he's done it with an 18-year-old defenseman, and he's brought in a veteran, and Talon brought him in Willie Mitchell, but he has kept those pairings together. He's got this team up front believing that they have to play defensive hockey in order to be successful. He has pushed all the right buttons on this team, and I think Mike's assessment was right on the money. If he gets him in the playoffs, I think he's got a real good shot of winning this. And if he doesn't, you might go to Laviolette, whose contributions has been real significant. I mean, I think Trotz left that team in great shape in terms of he instilled a lot of high compete level into that team. Weber and Yossi and Ellis and Seth Jones to a lesser extent. These guys have been instilled with great defensive-minded attitudes by Barry Trotz, and this team knew how to play good team defense. But Laviolette's come in there and changed their perspective on how to get goals and how to create offense and how to be a more well-rounded team, and it's really had an impact. I mean, they went from being a team that didn't make the playoffs to now being the number 1. And I think everybody thought they were going to be a little better this season, but nobody would have predicted this. And this, not that this plays a role, and I'm going to do what I don't like others to do. But I just want to point out, not for the sake of the argument, but he's done this everywhere he's been. Everywhere he's been, he's taken a team in that first season and made it a lot better. So we shouldn't be surprised at this, but and that shouldn't play a role in the voting. But I think he's been very impressive. So I guess Gallant is my pick for now, but I also think that Laviolette could easily win this.
He could win it. Josh, real quick.
I got two right now. One being the Nashville Predators and Peter Laviolette and what he's been able to go in there and do and make this team right now lead the whole NHL. Well, they're tied with Anaheim, 60 points. But, I mean, Lavi, I think, has done a tremendous job in there and in Nashville. And obviously Barry Trotz had a lot to do with their success as well and what he's been able to do with that club. But Lavi's gone in there and kind of opened up the offense a little bit more. We've seen Forsberg, who's a Rookie of the Year candidate, do amazing things in the short season so far. But another guy who I really like a lot and what he's been able to do with his club, first-time NHL coach Willie Desjardins.
Yeah, that's a good. I mean, he's a good.
I've heard it two different ways. Willie has done a fantastic job with the Vancouver Canucks. This is a team that last year everyone was talking fire sale, and I mean the team's had a big improvement. Right now they're sitting in sixth spot right now in the Western Conference. But I know I'm looking at Western Conference, but I should be looking at the wild card, where right now they're actually sitting in the second spot in the Pacific right now. But the Canucks, big changes there with bringing Willie in, and the team's playing a lot better. The Sedins are happy. No more John Tortorella. I think Desjardins, if Vancouver can, win some more games, and they've lost the last two, but if Ryan Miller could stand on his head, I think Desjardins could be a good lock for Coach of the Year.
Yeah, that's not bad. I mean, I like that too. We're actually running out of time. We'll do the caller tomorrow on this, and I want to throw something else out there, another name out there, because I've been a supporter of his, and there is one player right now, one defenseman. This is incredible. This is how much the NHL's changed. There's one defenseman in the top 150 scorer defenseman. Now, if you think about this, 150, like the 150th scorer defenseman has 5 points. So we're talking about, most defensemen, right? And most regular defensemen have 5 points or more. One of them with over 60 minutes in penalties. And one defenseman in the entire NHL in the top 10 for penalty minutes. And that would be Dustin Byfuglien. It's funny how we just don't have the defense.
And he's played half the year at forward, so there's a caveat there.
There is a caveat there, I give you that, but it's amazing how little defensemen are taking penalties in the NHL. When you think about that, there was a time when defensemen, would be up among the penalty minute leaders because they would, the situation they would be in. This year, that just
especially I think coaches have instructed their defensemen, to not. I mean, they instruct everybody not to take penalties unless it's absolutely necessary, but especially the defensemen, because you only have 6 and you have 12 forwards. Now you can see, like, when you're watching a Maple Leaf game, continuously, opposing forwards try to draw Dion Phaneuf in the penalties. Why? Because Dion Phaneuf is the best defenseman on the Leafs, and without him for 5 minutes or 2 minutes, they're susceptible. They're more susceptible to giving up a goal. So I think that's the way that the teams are approaching it right now.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. That's a weird one, though. What do you have, Josh, first? We got to get out of here. Sorry.
Just a couple of things. First of all, the Dallas Stars may be out without their dynamic duo top line for tomorrow night's game against the Ottawa Senators. According to Mark Stepneski of the Stars official website, Seguin missed practice today with an apparent illness. Jamie Benn's apparently dealing with an undisclosed injury. Both players are officially listed as questionable for tomorrow night. Dallas Stars, 2 top players. That could definitely be a bit of a problem for them when they play tomorrow night against the Senators.
They're in the race again, so.
What's that?
They're playing really well. They're in the race again. So.
Other news today, the Toronto Maple Leafs were calling William Nylander from, I think, Modo. Modo in Sweden. Darren Dreger, some thoughts on the recall. Says the Leafs like Nylander's game at the World Juniors, want him to get comfortable with the North America game. Leafs have no intention of recalling Nylander. Plan is to continue his development with the Marlies. Toronto included a recall provision in Nylander's contract, which had to be triggered by January the 16th.
It's interesting that they're bringing him down the Myers. We'll talk about this more at some point, but this is a tough one. Anything else, Josh?
No.
Okay.
That's all.
Guys, we went long, so I went into. I'm sorry for stopping the show quickly here, but that was a good show as always. We will talk to you again tomorrow. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. Talk to you soon.